now by Nathan Dean, senior government analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence and the author of Washington Update newsletter. Nathan, it was a question mark as to whether Kevin Warsh would be able to advocate for cuts, perhaps today in the drop in oil prices, give him a little bit more room.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he brings that up at the confirmation hearing next week. And it's going to be really interesting to see what the Republicans discuss with him versus the Democrats. So the Republicans, you're most likely going to see them talk about monetary policy, and you're going to get some monetary policy debate there. The Democrats aren't really going to probably push him on monetary policy or rates. They are going to be probably pushing him a little bit more on ties to the Trump administration. And Senator Elizabeth Warren actually had a press gaggle yesterday sort of previewing what that committee is going to look like. Now, ultimately, just note this, is that Kevin Warsh really doesn't have a concern with the votes here. He has the support to get the nomination, but Senator Tom Tillis has said that he's going to block any vote from occurring, and this vote wouldn't be on Tuesday. It would actually take place a little bit later. He'll block any vote until this resolution is taken place with the investigation of the Federal Reserve by the DOJ. Now, the Republicans are being optimistic it will happen by May 15th, but it's still to be determined whether or not that's going to happen or not.
I mean, Trump has repeated some of his hard language on Powell, threatening to fire him if he doesn't exit. Nathan, it doesn't seem like the president and indeed the DOJ are willing to drop this. So what does that mean for the confirmation hearing of Kevin Warsh?
So I think there's two scenarios that I think could play out. The first scenario is that you could just see maybe the DOJ investigation being transferred to the Senate in terms of a Senate investigation. It's a little, it's not criminal. It's a little bit less onerous. I don't think that really changes Jerome Powell's position, though, that he would not leave as Fed governor come May 15th. So come May 15th, if we don't have a resolution here, I think you'll see President Trump try to fire Jerome Powell. And our litigation analyst, Elliot Stein, says is that it's going to be very difficult for him to do that as governor. But more likely than not, you would see an acting chair. So call it Stephen Myron. At that point, though, it's really important for retail investors to note, not all of them to understand this, is that even though acting chair would be by Stephen Myron, the FOMC has a different chair and has a different voting structure. Jerome Powell would remain as chair of the FOMC. So that'd be very difficult for, I think, President Trump to try and get back to his sphere of influence. So I think we'll see a lot of opinions for the president at that point.
Nathan, I think the big thing to watch this weekend, it's not controversial to say, is what happens with continued negotiations between the U.S. and Iran. President Trump, even before today, was quite optimistic that they would reach some sort of deal. And then we learned about 2 hours ago that Iran's foreign minister saying that the Strait of Hormuz is open as long as there's a ceasefire. What are you watching out for as this weekend unfolds?
I want to see if actual negotiations take place, because right now they're taking place via Truth Social and via social media. And we just had a discussion here internally, here in the office. What we're looking for is actually to see further steps, call it memorandums of understanding, call it additional discussions to take place in Islamabad. If you begin to see those steps actually taking place into more, call it codification of what we've seen on social media, then I think the momentum is swinging towards that position. If you are going to see those steps like the Iranian government saying you still need to check in with us when you transit to Hormuz, and President Trump says, no, that's not the case, obviously with Lebanon, then things could actually go back to the status quo. But we need to see further momentum in terms of actually the U.S. and Iran coming together in further negotiations.
Nathan, thank you so much for joining. Always a pleasure to have you on a Friday. That's Nathan Dean of Bloomberg Intelligence.